Hi. Mic testing, 1, 2, and 3. I already tested the mic, but I just wanted to say that. So, hello. Welcome back to Aadit's History, the number one AP World History series, okay? I hope that my voice is, coming out fine. I think that, my voice might not be great right now, but I'll do my best. So, right now, we're going to start out with 6.2, because I think that I think I still need to review 6.1 a bit more before actually making a video on that. But in general, in chapter 6, we're talking about the economy, right? What were the things traded? And so, um, in the early modern era, right? So there's four big things throughout our entire chapter that we talk about. We have furs, silver, spices, and textiles. That's the four big things our textiles that our textbook says are the important trade items during the early modern era. Of course, you've also got slavery. I think 6.4 talks a lot about that. But the slave trade, but in general, in the completely global scheme of things, these are the four big things, okay? And so today we're doing 6.2, which is gonna be the silver trade. Okay, hi. So really quick, I just paused the recording. I wrote the reading terms and the guiding questions on our board, right? Just to keep us a little focused, right? So that we know what's important. Anyways, okay, let me just move over a little bit. So our reading terms are silver drain, piece of 8, botosi, and the Tokugawa shogun. Okay? And our guiding questions are what caused the demand for silver and where did it come from? Our next question is how did the silver trade affect the different classes in botosi? And lastly, we have how did the silver trade affect Spain, Japan, and China? Okay? So, um, yeah, let me just get started right there. Okay? Alright, okay, I'm gonna stop delaying now, and I'm just gonna actually get started. First of all, so what caused the demand for silver? Where did it come from? Before the so yeah, let's just start with where it came from, right? So there's two big places where you're gonna see the silver main thing, and so that's first of all you've got Japan, which we're gonna focus a little bit less on, but a big important one is we're gonna in Spanish America. I think it was in Bolivia ish today, but in Spanish America, we've got a lot of the silver there, right? And especially we're gonna have our city called Potosi. Okay, you might be like, why am I starting on the third reading term? It's because I didn't ask. Okay, I didn't ask for your opinion. I'm going to start like this. So, Potosi is a city, you should know where it is for our final, but I think it's kind of in the middle ish of the central ish area, a little bit north of that in South America. Like I said, I'm pretty sure Bolivia. Um, so Potosi is important, and so it's pretty important, and why are they getting so much silver, right? So silver is gonna become huge. Okay, sorry, it's gonna be huge. So in Potosi, why they were taking so much silver is because um you're going to in China, you're gonna see that the rulers, the Ming Dynasty at the time. I know that last unit we talked, I think we talked a lot about the Qing Dynasty from Manchuria, but right before them you've got the Ming Dynasty, which are the local Han people of China. But the Ming Dynasty is going to put this tax, and because before it's a little bit confusing because you've got a lot of different things that can be collected for taxes. Oh, maybe I'll get okay, give me this stuff you farm, give me you can also give this stuff here. Very a little bit more work for the tax collectors. The tax collectors to make I guess to make things simpler probably. Just and more straightforward. China starts requiring that you pay in silver. Okay, they start requiring that the citizens pay their taxes in silver. This is going to have major implications, which I'll talk about more when we talk about how it affected China, the silver trade. But because of this, the citizens don't really they don't really have silver normally. So they're gonna start trading more. So that the normal citizens are gonna have to sell things to Europeans and all, and also to the Japanese. But yeah, largely what's important is they're gonna have to sell things to the Europeans and in particular Spain, so that they can get silver. And so like silver is going to spread through like a lot of Europe, and so we're going to get into our first term, the silver drain. Okay, um, in in China, basically like most of the world's silver is just gonna like go to China. So like let's say this is North America, very great drawing of North America. This is South America. This is Europe. This is what is it? Let's say this is like Asia, right? Awesome drawings, and this is like Africa. Okay, I'm gonna forget about Australia. And I'm gonna forget about the what is this called, Antarctica, because I don't care about them. So we've got our South America here. We've got Potosi. Okay, Potosi, and then from Potosi, you're gonna have things like traveling across the well. I don't know if you remember from the class activity, but like we mentioned, like in like Mexico, there was like a city, and I kind of forgot its name. You should probably check that activity. But like, you go like, boom, and then this like, I think it goes like, I don't know, like maybe like this. I don't know. It goes to like Europe-ish, basically. That's all you need to know. It goes from Potosi to like that city in Mexico. You don't really, for the final, since it's multiple choice, you don't really need to know the details. It goes to Mexico, goes to Europe, and then it like dilly dallies, goes around all around Europe, right? Then from Europe, oh, like, I don't know, like somehow then it's gonna go to Asia, probably over sea, not over land, but like I'm gonna draw it over land because I don't know the route, and we didn't really talk about that. But um, this is going to like go to Asia, and most of it's going to end up in China. Okay, because Europe is kind of like the middleman in the trade. Because Europe, as always, is being doing its thing, being irrelevant. Right? It becomes relevant later, but here it's still irrelevant. So Europe is going. Europe is basically like the silver trade is the first time you've got like extended amounts of contact between like the Americas and Asia. Okay, there's because others it's like not really that much contact before. So you've got your silver going to Europe, and so like in Europe they want like the luxury goods from the East or from Asia, and so they will trade with the East, and all these people want the silver, right? So that's lovely. Okay. And so now, how did it? Now we need to talk about the second thing, right? How did it affect the different classes in Potosi, right? So you've got like a couple of big groups, right? So the main ones I'm going to talk about are the Native Americans, of course, and we've also got the what is it? What are they called? Spanish, right? So we've got this wealthy Spanish. Okay, so well, there might have been poor Spanish, but these are the ones it talks about. So I'm going to talk about the wealthy Spanish. Okay, and one second, let me just pause real quick. Sorry, my throat was feeling a little bit off for a moment, but I'm back. So essentially, the Native Americans, if you remember, in the Americas, you've got these people working with the haciendas, the encomiendas. Essentially, these people, they're essentially forced laborers, okay? So you've got these Native Americans, and they're going to be working in like these pretty dangerous mines, really. And so they're going to be forced to work in these mines, and so they're not really like living in that great conditions. If you and then the Spanish, like especially like the Spanish elite, how they're living in like luxury. Okay, they're like, oh my god, what's going on with my voice? Okay, so the Spanish elite, they're living in luxury, and they're like they're happy, right? They're living well, and you can see things from all over the world here. Okay, you've got like people wearing like Chinese silicon textiles here, right? That's crazy. All the way in the Americas, the Chinese stuff. Okay, wait, am I even in the video? Okay, um, so yeah, and so that's basically the class disparity here. Um, if you remember in the activity we did, we talked a lot more about this class disparity and the conditions for the Native Americans, and maybe I'll just like slightly talk about the like if you remember they were working in like pretty bad conditions. I think like a ton of them would end up dying, the Native Americans in those mines because yeah, and so we also read that primary source if you want further evidence of like how terrible the working conditions were. but I think you get the general idea. Um, but okay, so how did the silver trade affect the different causes? So we're done with this, and we're kind of done with this as well. And so um, now we're gonna talk about like just like the global like implications of the silver trade, okay? And so in Spain, the silver trade surprisingly doesn't have that much of like an influence on like economically in Spain, like on actually making it like an economic powerhouse, okay? Because what happens is like in Spain they don't really they like get like all this money, but they don't use this money well. What ends up happening is that like there's severe inflation. Okay, so like there's like severe inflation is one thing. That's pretty much all it does. It doesn't actually like increase the wealth. Another thing is like the elites like they don't like invest it. Okay, this money they're not really like doing business with this money. They're just like using it to like live in luxury. The and or the what do you call it? The aristocracy. Okay, um, and so because they're not really like actually like, investing this money into like businesses and all, then that's not they're not really like they're not really contributing that money from the silver trade to the actual economy. The other big thing is that like the economy was very regulated. Okay, so like in China today, they're basically capitalist except they pretend to be communist. And now I probably can't go to China less the CCP end me, but the economy is really regulated, and so that made it a lot that made it very difficult for the money to actually be used in an effective manner. And that means that Spain doesn't actually benefit too much from this incredible trade. And I mean it when I say incredible. I believe, yeah, I just checked it earlier, and so they controlled 85% of the world's silver trade. That is insane, okay? But yeah. So we've also got our second like big place where like silver is from. Obviously it's like not nearly to the extent that like Spain was mining silver in Potosi. Because Potosi are like producing like most of the world's silver. But Japan was like producing quite a lot of silver, and if you're over here, we've got our term, the Tokugawa shogun, and so the Tokugawa shoguns are essentially like these military rulers. Um, it's pretty cool actually, but they were essentially the de facto rulers, and the emperor was kind of like their puppet. You can look into it if you want. But the Tokugawa shoguns, they were like military rulers of Japan, in like the 1600s to or mid 1800s, and so they're important, of course. They're the rulers, and so, but they're gonna end up being very close to the. They're gonna be close to the merchants, okay? And so this is like unlike in the. This is unlike the what is it called? The Spain, uh, and so they're gonna be close to merchants, and they're gonna have like policies which are pretty favorable to the merchants. And another thing is that they're gonna actually like, make sure to use this money in an effective way. Okay, they're not just gonna like be like Spain and like not use their money well. Okay, so that's good. And so because of that, this will like pave the way for like Japan to do like tons of cool things. Like they're gonna have like their like industrial revolution in the 1800s. Awesome. Okay, and they're gonna become like a really like they're gonna do like good stuff with that silver. Okay, with the money they're getting. And so that's the big difference. And also, I kind of forgot to talk about this earlier, but there's some really big environmental implications of the silver trade, okay? And so Japan's gonna do a really good job of like managing that. So because at a certain point, because of the fact that like they like were cutting down forests and stuff to make room for things like cash crops, like a ton of forests got cut down, and that's like not good. But the Japanese government is gonna have like a sort of program to try and like reinstate this forest, which is really awesome. Okay, and so they're gonna actually do good stuff with this silver trade. It's like they're super cool. Okay, and something I just briefly wanted to mention because I forgot to talk about it earlier. What is the piece of eight? The piece of eight was a standard, essentially like a standard like silver coin, which was used like especially in China. Okay, in southern China, especially it was like, used a ton, but like really all over the world, in India, in Europe. in the Americas, all over. It's being used a lot. Okay, so this because this really represents just like how much Spain was influential in the circulation of silver across the world. So now we've talked about how its effect on Spain, its effect on Japan. Now let's talk about its effect on China. Okay, so as you remember earlier, Ming Dynasty requires the people to pay their taxes in silver. And so if you remember before in our last we talked about how like the Europeans are like struggling to like get into the Asian market initially because of the problem that like they don't have anything good that the Asians want. So then that's not good for the Europeans. So they start conquering places, and you see the emergence of things like trading post empires um, and trade by conquest. But because of this, the the Europeans can finally infiltrate the Chinese market, which is like yay for the Europeans. And so the Chinese, they're gonna trade with the Chinese like citizens in order to be able to like get the silver to pay their taxes. They have to trade with the Europeans for that silver. So that makes China a lot more. That makes increases the commercialization and industrialization in China. That's what our textbook talks about a lot. Although something I've read about on my own that the textbook doesn't talk about too much. This also severely like impoverishes a lot of people who can't get the silver, which somewhat contributes towards the downfall of the Ming Dynasty and the rise of the Qing Dynasty or King Dynasty. I don't know how you pronounce it. Qing. Anyways, um, you probably don't need to know that for our final. So, uh, that's like all cool. That's cool and all, but like, what about how like maybe like we'll talk about China and Japan a bit, right? So like the thing is, Japan like had that like super awesome program where they were and managing the environment well. China doesn't do that. China is gonna keep on like replacing their like forests with land because they need to have land to plant cash crops, and the Chinese government isn't really gonna do anything about that. And so yeah, they don't. That's kind of bad for China. They're gonna like lose more than half their forest, and I don't think I missed anything. That's basically our entire chapter, or not chapter, sorry, section. Sorry that like there's a lot of waffling around in this recording, but hopefully things make sense. If you didn't get anything, just remember silver comes from Potosi, and they want the silver because they want to export silver because China has a tax paid in silver, so they want silver, and most of the world silver will end up there. That's two important things. Then the other thing is that we have our in Potosi, like it's gonna majorly like be very good for the European elite, kind of bad for the Native Americans. And then for the effects, you just have the silver trade. Um, it's not really that much. It doesn't really have much of an effect in Spain because of mismanagement of the funds. Then you have Japan. They're going to do a really awesome job because they're going to collaborate with the merchants and stuff, and they're also going to manage the environment. And China, they're going to have increased industrialization and commercialization at the cost of very severe damage to the environment. And that's all. Bye.